Well, good morning, folks. It is St. Patrick's Day of all days of the year, and it's a Friday, which means people are going to have got all that pent up, whatever you want to call it, and they're going to release whatever you want to call it. This is one day to stay off the roads, especially tonight. No, I don't feel like dying in an accident with a drunk. Gee, I hope I keep that in mind and I don't go out on the roads myself. So it's Friday, and I got up pretty good. I'm trying to get used to this new time zone. Well, the time is different on my wall clock. It adjusts. I hate daylight savings time. Most of us do, but if there was ever an indication that we don't have representation in this government, it would be the daylight savings time. We're strapped with it. We can't get rid of it. But and it's not good for us. I don't think it's good for biological systems to be going around changing the clocks. At least for people that are older like myself, we can kind of ignore that, but we have to get used to the working hours and all that stuff. That is really a violation of nature, and it violates our nature. It's bad for our health. And it is one of the biggest indicators that we don't have representation. Because clearly the vast majority of us don't like it. Another one of those that indicates we have no representation is the fluoridation of water, which is illegal in every European country, has been illegal it's going on 30 years now. But in the States here, we can't get them to stop. And, of course, it's all built upon lies, like everything else that is done, lies and fraud. And they brainwash the dental students in that more than anybody else. The dentist, they work on them extra hard to make sure they accept that lie. And by the way, fluoridation it's cumulative. As you live your life, you get more and more of it in your body. So when you look at me, this is years of fluoridated water. I've done my best to avoid it, but you can't avoid it because even the bread you buy off the shelf has been made with fluoridated water, and that's in there. You got that poison in there. It is a rat poison. And they look at us as just rodents anyway. And it didn't come into play until after World War II, which is one of those things that makes you wonder who really won World War II. Well, the guys that won World War II have never been announced. It's never been made public as far as I can tell. And I hear that rumor that, Eisenhower signed a unconditional surrender with Germany, with some group of Germans in 1952 or 53. That's according to his granddaughter. What the heck is that about? If you know anything about that, I certainly would like to know. Okay, I did not do anything yesterday. We didn't do a Bible study. I took care of other matters. And I did do one show, the other show, and I prefer doing giving psychology away first because it kind of gets me going, gets me started, and I get all that creativity out. So we're in Book of Judges, and we finished the story of Samson. So we're going to continue on with that. Forgive me while I get my reading light on. Got to do it. In Samson's last act. By the way, in case you're wondering, is this just a Bible story? There are the ruins to this place, and you can see that the roof of it was just massive. 3,000 people up on the roof. I don't know if you could put 3,000 on there, to be honest with you, but it was pretty massive and pretty big. And so that act of strength of his was pretty massive, pretty big. So at least we've got that story. This continuation is pretty interesting because if we put two and two together, we realize that one of these characters overlaps and it's not mentioned directly in here. And I'll see if I can do that while reading it for you. Judges chapter 17. And there was a man of Mount Ephraim whose name was Micah. And he said to his mother, the 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from you, about which you cursed, and spoke of also in my ears, behold, the silver is with me. I took it. And his mother said, Blessed be you of Yahweh, my son. So here we are. We're starting out. This fellow named Micah is a thief. He has stolen 1,100 shekels of silver from his mother. Okay, kind of interesting. Here we go. I think we've got it right here, right in the beginning. Let me see. Okay. I believe. Yeah, Judges 16, chapter 16, verse 5. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, Entice him, and see wherein his great strength lies, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give you every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. So I guess Micah's mother was Delilah. Just taking a guess. I mean, it doesn't say that explicitly. But he steals 1,100 pieces of silver from his mother and tells her, Hey, Mom, I got your silver. Oh, blessed be you, son. For what, telling her about it? Did he give it back to her? Or he stole it in the first place? Okay. And when he'd restored the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother said, I had wholly dedicated the silver unto Yahweh from my hand for my son to make a graven image and a molten image. Now, therefore, I will restore it to you. So she gives him back the silver. She wants a graven image made. Blessed be you of Yahweh, my son. Kind of makes you wonder. It also makes you wonder if his father might not have been Samson. That just crossed my mind. Verse 4, continuing. Yet he restored the money to his mother, and his mother took 200 shekels of silver and gave them to the founder, who made thereof a graven image and a molten image, and they were in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had a house of gods, and made an ephod and a teraphim, and consecrated one of his sons, who became his priest. Really religious dude. In those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Now this is kind of a formulaic verse, if you ask me. It shows up quite a bit. Everybody does that which is right in their own eyes. It's a quaint saying. Verse 7. And there was a young man out of Bethlehem, Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. And the man departed out of the city from Bethlehem, Judah, to sojourn where he could find a place. And he came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, as he sojourned. And Micah said to him, Wherefrom come you? And he said to him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah, and I go to sojourn where I may find a place. And Micah said to him, Dwell with me, and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 shekels a year of silver by the year, and a suit of apparel, and your victuals. So the Levite went in. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man was to him as one of his sons. And Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became his priest, and was in the house of Micah. Then said Micah, Now know that I, Yahweh, will do me good, seeing I have a Levite for my priest. He was abiding by the previous practice. Levites handled everything. They were the priests. Judges 18. In those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of the Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. For to that day all their inheritance had not fallen to them among the tribes of Israel. And the children of Dan sent of their family 5 men from their coast, men of valor from Zorah and from Eshtaol, and to spy out the land and to search it. And they said to him, Go, search the land. Who then came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah. They lodged there. When they were by the house of Micah, they knew the voice of the young man, the Levite, and they turned in there, and said to him, Who brought you here? And what do you in this place? And what have you here? And he said to them, Thus and thus deals Micah with me, and has hired me, and I am his priest. And they said to him, Ask counsel, we pray you, of God, that you may know whether our way which we shall go shall be prosperous. And the priest said to them, Go in peace, before Yahweh is your way wherein you go. And the 5 men departed and came to Laish, one of the walled cities, and saw the people that were therein, and how they dwelt carelessly after the manner of the Zidonians, quiet and secure. And there was no magistrate in the land that might put them to shame in anything. And they were far from the Zidonians, and had no business with any man. And they came to their brethren of Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brethren said to them, What say you? And they said, Arise, that we may go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And are you still? Be not slothful to go, and to enter to possess the land. When you go, you shall come to a people secure, and to a large land, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is no want of anything that is in the earth. And there went from there of the family of the Danites out of Zorah and out of Eshtaol 600 men appointed with weapons of war. And they went up and pitched in Kithjathajearim, and said in Judah, therefore they called that place Mahanahedron, and unto this day, behold, it is behind Kithjathajearim. And they passed from them there to Mount Ephraim, and came to the house of Micah. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said to their brethren, Do you know that there is in these houses an ephod, and teraphim, and a graven image, and a molten image? And now therefore consider what you have to do. And they turned toward there, and came to the house of the young man the Levite, even to the house of Micah, and saluted him. And the 600 men appointed with their weapons of war, which were of the children of Dan, stood by the entering of the gate. And the 5 men that went to spy out the land went up and came in there, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. And the priest stood in the entering of the gate with the 600 men that were appointed with weapons of war. And these went into Micah's house, and fetched the carved image, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. Then the priest said to them, What do you? And they said to him, Hold your peace, lay your hand upon your mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for you to be a priest in the house of one man, or that you be a priest to a tribe and a family in Israel? And the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod and the teraphim and the graven image, and went in the midst of the people. So they turned and departed, and put the little ones and the cattle and the carriage before them. And when they were a good way from the house of Micah, the men that were in the houses near to Micah's house were gathered together, and overtook the children of Dan. And they cried to the children of Dan, and they turned their faces and said to Micah, What ails you that you come with such a company? And he said, You have taken away my gods which I made, and the priest, and have gone away. What have I more? And what is this that you say to me? What ails you? And the children of Dan said to him, Let not your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows run upon you, and you lose your life, with the lives of your household. And the children of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back to his house. And they took the things which Micah had made, and the priests which he had, and came to Laish, and to a people that were at peace and secure. And they smote them with the edge of the sword, and burnt the city with fire. And there was no deliverer, because it was far from Zidon, and they had no business with any man. It was in the valley that lies by Beth-rehob, and they built a city and dwelt therein. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel. However, the name of the city was Laish at the first. And the children of Dan set up the graven image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan until the day of the captivity in the land. And they set up Micah's graven image, which he made, all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. It's rather interesting. You've got the two golden calves, one in Shiloh, and then you have this other one in Dan, which is exactly where Manasseh set this stuff up. Well, I believe it was Manasseh. No, I'll think of his name a little later. It was the first king. Was it Rehoboam or Jeroboam? I think it was Jeroboam set that up. Jeroboam set up the two golden calves, whereas Rehoboam was the son of Solomon in the southern half. We're going to continue on to a little story here which sort of stands out in that it's not a big story. It doesn't seem to be a big deal. But here it is in the Bible. And by the way, this is one of those stories that it is repeated somewhere else in the Bible. There is another similar story to this, and that makes it stand out a little bit. And this is Judges 19, and probably the most important thing about this is that we have a precedent, if you will. We have an activity which is just horrible. It's horrendous. And it results in a lot of deaths. And it's a horrible crime. And this death and dismemberment occurs twice in the Bible. And then it's implied a third time. And that would be Canaan. And so why is this important? Well, let's just read it first and then let me comment after that, okay? Judges 19, and it came to pass in those days that there was no king in Israel, and there was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, who took to him a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah. And his concubine played the whore against him, and went away from him to her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and was there 4 whole months. And her husband arose and went after her to speak friendly to her and to bring her again, having a servant with him and a couple of donkeys. And she brought him into her father's house. And when the father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. And his father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him, and he stayed with him 3 days, and did eat and drink and lodge there. And it came to pass on the 4th day, when they arose early in the morning, that he arose up to depart. And the damsel's father said to his son-in-law, Comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward go your way. And they sat down and did eat and did drink, both of them together. For the damsel's father had said to the man, Be content, I pray you, and tarry all night, and let your heart be merry. And when the man rose up to depart, his father-in-law urged him. Therefore he lodged there again. And he arose early in the morning on the 5th day to depart. And the damsel's father said, Comfort your heart, I pray you. And they tarried until afternoon, and they did eat, both of them. And when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the damsel's father, said to him, Behold, now the day draws toward evening. I pray you, tarry all night. Behold, the day grows to an edge. Lodge here, that your heart may be merry. and tomorrow get you early on your way that you may go home. But the man would not tarry that night, but rose up and departed, and came up against Jebus, which is Jerusalem. And there with him 2 donkeys saddled. His concubine was with him also. And when they were by Jebus, the day was far spent. And the servant said to his master, Come, I pray you, and let us turn into the city of the Jebusites, and lodge in it. And his master said to him, We will not turn aside here into the city of a stranger. That is not the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. And he said to his servant, Come, and let us draw near to one of these places to lodge all night in Gibeah or in Ramah. And they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down upon them when they were in Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. And they turned aside there to go in and to lodge in Gibeah. And when he went in, he sat down in the street on the city, for there was no man that took them into his house to lodge. And behold, there was an old man from his work out of the field at evening, which was also of Mount Ephraim. And he sojourned in Gibeah, but the men of the place were Benjamites. And when he had lifted up his eyes, he saw the wayfaring man in the street of the city. And the old man said, Where go you? And from where come you? And he said to him, We are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, toward the side of Mount Ephraim, from there am I. And I went to Bethlehem, Judah, and I am now going to the house of Yahweh, and there is no man that receives me into his house. Yet there is both straw and feed for our donkeys, and there is bread and wine also for me, and for your handmaid, and for the young man which is with your servants. There is no want of anything. And the old man said, Peace be with you. However, let all your wants lie upon me. Only lodge not in the street. So he brought him into his house, and gave feed to the donkeys, and they washed their feet, and did eat and drink. Now as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, surrounded the house round about, and beat at the door, and spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, Bring forth the man that came into your house, that we may know him. The old biblical no. And the master of the house, went out to them, and said, No, my brother, no, I pray you, do not so wickedly, seeing that this man has come into my house, do not this disgrace. Behold, here is my daughter a maiden, and his concubine, and I will bring them out now, and humble you them, and you do with them what seems good to you. But to this man do not so vile a thing. But the men would not listen to him. So the men took his concubine, and he brought her forth to them, and they knew her, and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go. Then came the woman in the dawning of the day, and fell down at the door of the man's house where her lord was, till it was light. And her lord arose in the morning, and opened the doors of the house, and went out to go his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, was fallen down at the door of the house, and her hands were upon the threshold. And he said to her, Up, and let us be going. But there was no answer. Then the man took her up upon a donkey, and the man rose up and got him to his place. And when he had come into his house, he took a knife and laid hold on his concubine and divided her, together with her bones, into 12 pieces, and sent her into all the coasts of Israel. And it was so, that all that saw it said, There was no such deed done or seen from the city of that the children of Israel came up and out of the land of Egypt unto this day. Consider it, take advice, and speak your minds. It's Judges chapter 19. It's a horrible thing. There's a few little things to gather out of here. We can gather that a concubine was almost a man's wife. We can gather there was ownership, and we can gather that he's to take care of her. We can also gather that it's his property. She's his property, and she can do with him what he pleases, even give her over to the crowd. It's just a horrible thing all the way around. Not too many good in this particular story, if you ask me. Why is it important? Well, we're going to stop right here for the moment. It's important, according to Eustace Mullins, the author out of the great state of Virginia. He wrote in The Curse of Canaan, which was at one time going for $150 for the hardback book. I had a clean copy that was my mother's, but we lost it. The one I have is got yellow highlight, red ink, and dog-eared. So it's been marked up too much to command a high price. And in that, he tells the story, and the story is that Canaan was harming the children. He was like the head priest of a cult religion, and the cult was basically a child sacrifice and sexual practices in the groves in public. So it was done above board. Everybody could see it and see what was going on. And Canaan's uncle Shem warned him on several occasions, stop doing that. And if you don't stop doing that, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna cut you to pieces. And Canaan kept on doing these ugly practices. And so his uncle Shem was a man of his word, and Shem was known as a mighty warrior. And there is a stone that he erected himself on the boundary to Egypt, and he said that he went into Egypt, found every evil there, and conquered it, meaning he killed all those people doing the evil. So Shem, being Noah's oldest boy and being the inheritor of the blessing, told his nephew Canaan, stop doing this stuff and worship the one true God, Yahweh, or I'm going to kill you. I'm going to cut you to pieces and make you a lesson for the rest of these people that you're misleading around our nation. And so he killed Canaan, cut his body up into several pieces, and sent a piece of it to each tribe, basically with the pronouncement, if you keep doing this stuff to the kids, I'm going to do this to you. So he sent that warning. According to Eustace Mullins, they took those pieces of the body and preserved them as relics. Now, today, your Roman Catholic Church, they got a bunch of relics, especially over in Italy. It's pretty weird. They save parts of the body and turn them into relics. And if you don't believe me, just go down there, especially down to Sicily. You'll see that they've got their dead bodies on display there. It's rather morbid. I mean, it's rather macabre. It's a little on the hideous side, and yet that's their saint. That was from their tradition. They have all kinds of that stuff set up. All these little places in Sicily have been around for a long time. Those bodies, those remains are very old in there. And they're right on display. They're not buried or anything. They're under glass, some of them, literally. Eustace Mullins says that this is how we ended up with our secret societies, that these groups of people took to heart the fact that here was Canaan dismembered in front of them, who had been leading them, and that he was killed because he was doing this stuff against Yahweh's will. There's another story in another religion about that, and that is, I believe, with Tammuz, which is supposed to predate and be kind of I don't know, I want to say commercial, that's not the right word, a preview. It was a preview of what was coming, so to speak. And so quite often we're told that the Christian faith is built upon, Tammuz, who was cut into pieces, and I guess the story is they got everything back together except for his penis was missing. So there's some stories about that are kind of macabre as well. So these stories all have that one common element of dismemberment and passing around these body parts with warning. You can't be doing this. And so that's what I wanted to pull up and let you know about. I wanted to tell you about that. Make of it as you want. It's just something that I pulled together over a long period of time. I don't know if it amounts to a hill of beans. I don't know if it's important or not. It's just kind of a strange thing that stands out, and this story stands out. And this story isn't the same story, but there's so many similarities. It lends credence to the other ones that we've heard about. That weird bunch of stuff where they basically raped his concubine all night, killing her, and him taking the Levite of all groups, of all of the people there, taking his concubine home and butchering her, cutting her up, and sending her around to let others know that, look at what's happened. This has never happened. That's kind of a horrible act when you think about it. Judges 20, we're continuing on, because we need to look at the consequences of the behavior. That's very important in our study of the Bible. Judges 20, verse 1. Then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was gathered together as one man, from Dan even to Beersheba, with the land of Gilead unto Yahweh in Mizpah. And the chief of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 footmen that drew the sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel had gone up to Mizpah. Then said the children of Israel, tell us, how became this wickedness? And the Levite, the husband of the woman that was slain, answered and said, I have come into Gibeah that belongs to Benjamin, I and my concubine, to lodge. And the men of Gibeah rose against me, and surrounded the house around about upon me by night, and thought to have slain me. And my concubine have they forced, so that she was dead. And I took my concubine and cut her in pieces, and sent her out through all the country of the inheritance of Israel. For they have committed lewdness and disgrace in Israel. Behold, you are all children of Israel. Give here your advice and counsel. And all the people arose as one man, saying, We will not any of us go to his tent, neither will any of us turn into his house. But now this shall be the thing which we will do to Gibeah. We will go up by lot against it. And we will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 out of 10,000, to fetch the provisions for the people, that they may do, when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin, according to all the disgrace that they have committed in Israel. So the men of Israel were gathered against the city, knit together as one man. And the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, What wickedness is this that is being done among you? Now thereof deliver us the men, the children of Belial, which are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death, and put away evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities of Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men that drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. Among all this people there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling stones about a hair's breadth and not miss. And the men of Israel, besides Benjamin, were numbered 400,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of war. And the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God and asked a counsel of God and said, which of us shall go up first to the battle against the children of Benjamin? And Yahweh said, Judah shall go up first. And the children of Israel rose up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel put themselves in array to fight against them at Gibeah. And the children of Benjamin came out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites that day 22,000 men. And the men of Israel encouraged themselves and set their battle again in array in the place where they put themselves in array the first day. And the children of Israel went up and wept before Yahweh until evening, and asked counsel of Yahweh, saying, shall I go up again to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother? And Yahweh said, go up against him. And the children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day. And Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah the second day, and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men. All these drew the sword. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came to the house of God and wept and sat there before Yahweh and fasted all day until evening, offering burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahweh. And the children of Israel inquired of Yahweh, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out and battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And Yahweh said, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand. And Israel sent liers in wait round about Gibeah. And the children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, and put themselves in array against Gibeah, as at other times. And the children of Benjamin went out against the people, and were drawn away from the city, and they began to smite out of the people, and to kill, as at other times, in the highways, of which one goes up to the house of God, and the other to Gibeah in the field, about 30 men of Israel. And the children of Benjamin said, they are smitten down before us, as at the first. But the children of Israel said, let us flee, and draw them from the city to the highways. And all the men of Israel rose up out of their place, and put themselves in array at Baltamar. And the liers in wait of Israel came forth out of their places, even out of the meadows of Gibeah. And there came against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of all Israel. And the battle was great, but they knew not that evil was near them. And Yahweh smote Benjamin before Israel, and the children of Israel destroyed of the Benjamites that day 25,100 men. All these drew the sword. So the children of Benjamin saw that they were smitten, for the men of Israel gave place to the Benjamites, because they trusted to the liers in wait which they had set behind Gibeah. And the liers of wait hurried and rushed upon Gibeah, and the liers of wait drew themselves along, and smote all the city with the edge of the sword. Now there was an appointed sign between the men of Israel and the liers in wait, that they would make a great flame with smoke rise out of the city. And when the men of Israel retired in the battle, Benjamin began to smite and kill all the men of Israel, about 30 persons. For they said, surely they are smitten down before us, as in the first battle. But when the flame began to rise up out of the city with a pillar of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them. And behold, the flame of the city ascended up to heaven. And when the men of Israel turned again, the men of Benjamin were amazed, for they saw that evil had come upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel unto the way of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, and they which came out of the cities they destroyed in the midst of them. Thus they enclosed the Benjamites round about, and chased them, and trod them down with east over against Gibeah toward the sun rising. And there befell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All these were men of valor. And they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon. And they gleaned of them in the highways 5,000 men, and pursued after them to Gidom, and slew 2,000 men of them, so that all which fell that day of Benjamin were 20 and 5,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of valor. But 600 men turned and fled into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and stayed in the rock of Rimmon 4 months. And the men of Israel turned again to the children of Benjamin, and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well as the men of every city, as the beast, and all that came to hand. Also they set on fire all the cities that they came to. So there were only 600 Benjamites left of the men. Judges 21. Now the men of Israel had sworn to Mizpah, saying, There shall not any of us give his daughter to Benjamin to wife. And the people came to the house of God, and stayed there till evening before God, and lifted up their voices, and wept greatly, and said, O Yahweh, God of Israel, why has this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel? And it came to pass on the next day that the people rose early, and built there an altar, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Israel said, Who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up to the congregation unto Yahweh? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to Yahweh in Mizpah, saying, He shall surely be put to death. And the children of Israel grieved themselves for Benjamin their brother, and said, There is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by Yahweh that we will not give them of our daughters as wives? And they said, What one is there of the tribes of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to Yahweh? And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. And the congregation sent 12,000 men of the most valiant, and commanded them, saying, Go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, and with the women and the children. And this is the thing you shall do. You shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that has lain with a man. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had known no man by lying with any male. And they brought them to the camp to Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. And the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin, which are at the rock of Rimmon, and to call to them peaceably. And Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives, which they had saved the lives of the women of Jabesh Gilead. And yet so they sufficed them not. Well, you have 600 men that were at the rock of Rimmon, and you have 400 women. So it's a little bit short. And the people repented them for Benjamin, because that Yahweh had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, There must be an inheritance for them, that they have escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe not be destroyed out of Israel. However, we may not give them wives of our daughters, for the children of Israel have sworn, saying, Cursed be he that gives a wife to Benjamin. Then they said, Behold, there is a feast of Yahweh in Shiloh yearly, in a place which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south of Lebanah. Therefore they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, Go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in the dances, then you come out of the vineyards, and you catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And it shall be, when their fathers or their brothers come to us to complain, that we will say to them, Be favorable to them for our sakes, because we reserved not to each man his wife in the war. For you did not give to them at this time, that you should be guilty. And the children of Benjamin did so, and took them wives according to their number, of them that danced, whom they caught, and they went and returned to their inheritance, and repaired the cities, and dwelt in them. And the children of Israel departed therefrom at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family, and they went out from there, every man to his inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes. So we've ended the book of Judges. What do I want to point out? The absurdities of the whole story. It's amazing. We have to note that. I mean, you can't ignore the elephant in the room. And there's some quaintness and some little tidbits in here which we can glean, which are probably don't mean that much. Not in the little story here, but we do know that they didn't have any chariots. They didn't have any horses. They didn't have, they just drew the sword. They had slings and swords. We know that. I don't think they even had archers at the time, but they had to have had archers because that's the method by which Cain himself was killed by mistake by Lamech. Lamech thought he was a deer, and it was a hunting accident. He killed the patriarch of his own lineage. His two wives encroached upon him to kill him, and he got them to back off by saying, if Cain was protected by a sevenfold curse, Lamech was protected by 70 times 7 or 77 maybe. I don't know how you read that. Anyway, it's kind of a strange game, complete with dances and kidnapping, which I guess was sanctioned. Now, I think what's important to note about Benjamin is where Benjamin is today. Benjamin today is called Iceland. The Benjamites settled Iceland. And if you go there, the people are very fair. I've never been there. Oh, I'd love to go there. The women are supposed to be very beautiful, and they've settled there. That is where the tribe of Benjamin has settled, and those are the descendants of Benjamin right now today. It's one of those tribes that we can trace out that has a peculiar history, and we know it wasn't a very big tribe for a reason. And we know there's some peculiarities about them, like the way they spoke from earlier parts of this book. We know that they had some characteristics in language. They had trouble pronouncing certain words. I did not do the first few books in Judges. I do want to go on with the book of Ruth. It's pretty important. One of the things I want to point out to you is that there's a lot of flexibility in this book. And yet there's a lot of rigidity as well. So you've got certain things which they absolutely abide by to the letter of the law, and they do. And other things which are kind of, shall we say, sloppy, regarded much more differently. I mean, here you have a tribe that is populated by kidnapping a couple hundred women, kept going by doing that. We have a tribe that was about taken apart. There was one tribe that would not fight against their brothers, and they would move every time. I'm not sure what tribe that was. I don't know if it might have been the Scots. They did not want to fight against their brothers. They did not want to shed their brother's blood. They didn't even want to risk it, so they would move and leave and go somewhere else, which I think was a wise way to do things and a wise way to avoid bloodshed. Murder. Maybe it was justified at times and maybe not. This is written in the old style of English. Forgive me for the lack of pronunciation. I've read this book to myself silently so much that I never have bothered to spell out these words. Also, this is the first time I've been through this version, and it does have some of the quaintness of the Old English. There's some artifacts in here. Some of the syntax throws me off a little bit. I'm not practiced at this in particular. King James Version would be far more quaint sounding. I probably would be able to read it better because I've read through that many times before. Yet this is modern English as well, and there's some differences. And there's also a little overlap, some quaintness to it, some old idiomatic sayings. I find that the repetition of little characteristics of these stories does come into play. Like Delilah perhaps was Micah's mother. I mean, we can take a guess that that's probably the case. It doesn't say that Micah was Samson's son, but it's possible. Just don't know. If you can find that in extra biblical books or figure it out from reading the Bible, do comment. Come back here and let us know. Please do leave comments. If I missed something, if you've caught something, if something has stood out to you, share it with the rest of us, because that helps us all think and grow. The old saying is iron sharpens iron is quite true when it comes to the scriptures, because things will occur to one of us that doesn't happen to the others. And I believe that when we talk about this stuff, the Spirit is there. And I rather love that. I am working on getting my motorhome fixed up. I'm going to try to travel this summer. I'm not going to go nearly as far as I did. I'm not going to cross the whole country like I did last summer and the summer before. Actually, the summer before I went all the way up to Alaska, then to the States, to Texas, and then up to New Hampshire. I was all in Phoenix. And back to Texas. I was all over the country. Okay, folks, we're going to call it right there. May Yahweh bless you. Hope you got something out of this video. May Yahweh make America good again.